You are not regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commissions the way Coca-Cola is. You do not have to comply with GAAP accounting rules to the level and degree that a company like that does. So a lot of the stuff that feels necessary or that you might be told is necessary, just from reading random online articles about bookkeeping or accounting, they're just not necessary for you. And all they're doing is adding confusion. Your stuff is so much simpler. It doesn't need to be that hard. Welcome to the Sunlight Podcast. In this show, we're talking about taxes, money, and careers for creative people who have a big vision for changing the world with their work. I'm your host, Hannah Cole, artist, tax pro, and the founder of Sunlight Tax. If you're an artist, designer, or creative entrepreneur who wants to grow your business sustainably, manage your taxes, and build a stash of fuck you money so you can control your own time and have a bigger impact with your work, you are in the right place. Hello, welcome to the Sunlight Podcast. So I've been doing a lot of thinking and really trying to crystallize and distill some of my thoughts about why it is so difficult for creative people, ethically aligned people, and people who are running a small business because of having a vision, right? People who basically work for themselves and who are doing that work out of passion, out of a vision, out of a mission, and not necessarily with money as their primary driver. Why it is so difficult for this group of people, for us, to be well served when it comes to money, right? There are so many challenges when it comes to getting your money organized, feeling frankly worthy, right? And having a good relationship with your money. And then furthermore, understanding your taxes, setting up retirement. Why is it so difficult? So today, what I've done for you is I tried to summarize it. I tried to distill the problem down to 10 points. Okay. So I'm going to give you the 10 points and the solution. And there's a real reason why, right? This is my passion. I'm an artist. I've been an artist for almost 20 years. And I just found it impossible to get good information on setting up to pay self-employment tax, quarterly taxes, to set up retirement, to basically be responsible with my money and take care of myself and my future, my kids. I found it impossible to get this information. And I'm a smart person, right? And I know that creative people, you're not doing art because you can't do anything else. You're doing it because you feel like it's the thing that drives you and you want to do in the world. Or you didn't start your small business because you just decided you didn't want to go into iBanking, although you probably did decide that. You're doing it because there's some hole in the world that you're trying to fill, right? Some problem you're trying to solve. So why is it so difficult for us to get this information, to get on top of our money? There are a lot of forces kind of working against us, but I'm here to say there are answers. It is not unsolvable. In fact, the answers are there. There's just a cultural divide and a knowledge gap that we just need to fill. Okay. And frankly, it's my mission to fill it. That's honestly what I built my company around, the purpose that I have, because I think that people like you, if you are listening to this show, you are out there solving a problem in the world, whether that is as a small business, a really tangible problem, like, doing really gorgeous branding to help ethical brands flourish, or, sourcing tea from local farmers, lots of amazing visions, right? Fill in the blank, whatever it is that you're doing. Or if you're a creative person, I think the creative people are the empathy muscle of our culture. And I think what's broken in our world will be solved by empathy and by building connections and bridges between people. I really think the work that you are doing is critical to this world. And so making sure that the people who do amazing work like this that will fix our world, making sure that you don't run out of gas, that you don't run out of oxygen, that you have the money you need to amplify the incredible mission that you have with your work, and also to put the oxygen mask on yourself so that you have sustainability, so that you can rest. That is my mission. That is what drives me, making sure you have that. Okay, so here it is. These are my 10 reasons that passionate, self-employed people get stuck when it comes to money and how to fix it. Here goes. Number one is that accountants get creative people wrong. Accountants get mission-driven people wrong. There's a cultural divide, okay? I did an entire podcast episode of this, but I'll try to summarize it here. Accountants are trained, and by nature, somebody who's attracted to accounting is often, not always, but is often basically the most conservative personality type that you could have, right? Accounting is a job that is very safe. You can get a job as an accountant if you have accounting training, right? It's not risky. And if you think about it, like becoming a painter, for example, like me, that's about as risky as it gets, right? So these are just constitutionally two different groups of people. These are two very, very different cultures, right? These are cultures that do not understand each other very well. And so it's a bad setup, right? I'm not saying all accountants are jerks or no accountant gets creative people or mission-driven people. I'm not saying that, but I am saying there is a tendency for these two groups to really not see each other. And that is a core piece of the problem. Number two, how mission-driven people can get in a bad relationship with money and how to fix it. So this is a problem. When you are driven by a mission, whether that is an arts mission, a creative mission, a mission about connection, creating beauty in the world, or whether it's about a social justice mission or a healing mission, something like that. When you have a mission, you tend to really prioritize that mission. And you often, the deeper you are in the mission, the more you can actually get yourself alienated from a good relationship with money. Why is that? Well, here's what I see, just because I do the taxes of a whole lot of people and I see it happen. So here's the pattern that I see. What I see is that when you're in a world prioritizing some type of mission or creativity, you're often underpaid, right? These worlds tend to prey on that drive that we have, right? And underpay us. The arts are notoriously badly paid. The healing professions, notoriously badly paid. Any profession that women tend to go into, notoriously underpaid. The caring professions, notoriously underpaid. That's because the people in them are passionate. They would do it even if they weren't paid. Does that mean they shouldn't be paid? Of course not. But it does mean there's a little bit of tolerance for low pay in these fields, right? So you're around people with tolerance for that all the time, and it starts to feel normal to you. I'm telling you, if you step out into the world of accounting, banking, you are not going to see that kind of tolerance. It doesn't exist everywhere. So what happens, I think, this is my opinion, is that when you are consistently underpaid over and over again, when everyone around you is asking for discounts, and when you sort of don't in yourself have a right relationship with it to know where your boundaries need to be on this and push back, it's really easy to start to see money as the thing that's evil, as the thing that's bad, because your mission is good and your mission seems to be sort of the wrong side of money. And actually, money isn't good. Money isn't bad. Money is neutral. Money's just a thing, right? Money doesn't have opinions, doesn't have agency. Money can't do shit, right? What money does do is it amplifies the impact of the person who has it, right? If you're a shitty person doing awful things in the world and you have a lot of money, you can do more awful things in the world. But if you're an aligned person with an incredible mission and capability and drive and ethics, and you have a lot of money, you can do so much more of that ethically values-driven work. So having money amplifies your impact. In fact, this is why this is the group of people that I choose to serve. It's because I want you to have money because you're the one who's going to do good with it, right? I'm not teaching this stuff to, like people who think money is the most important and the only thing in the world, because I don't think that is an orientation that I believe in. And I actually really love your mission. So what I think is that it's really easy to go from this position of money being neutral, which is true, to actually starting to attribute some malice to it, to start actually thinking of money as bad, as evil and of thinking of people who have money as bad or evil. And this may feel real because people who seem to have money, seem to have power, the ability to pay you, are asking for discounts all the time, are kind of pushing on you to get less and less pay. And that seems bad. That is bad. I'm not here to defend that. That's shitty behavior. But you start to think it's the money that's bad. It's the fact that they have money that makes that happen, right? That's not necessarily true. What's really important is to get back into a right relationship with your money, which is simply remembering it's just a tool and that it's an amplification device. If you're doing good work, having more money will enable you to do more good work, basically to have a deeper and broader impact with your work. Okay? I'm not telling you you need to worship money, and please don't, but you do need to have it. It's still the world we live in. It's still necessary. When you have that simple mindset shift, you're going to find it really unlocks your ability to get on top of your money and to treat it with frankly, the respect that it deserves and give it the space that it needs without judging it. So you want to shift your attitude to neutrality because it really opens you up to letting that money amplify your impact. And ultimately, if you believe in what you're doing, that's what you want, right? Number 4, there's no tax education in this country. So when you never got a financial education, as a lot of people like us didn't, right? If you're a passionate person, if you've always had a social justice orientation, if you are a creative person, if you're a historically marginalized person, if you're a woman, you may never have gotten an adequate financial education, right? And so it's really easy to think that this is your failing, that it's your personal failing. And I'm here to say it's not, because taxes aren't taught in this country. Okay, so it's not the fact that you're missing something inherently that is the reason you don't understand your taxes or you feel confused by this stuff. It's actually a little bit by design, cynical as that is. We allow lobbying in this country, and 2 of the biggest tax firms in this country, Intuit and H&R Block, they lobby Congress to keep our tax laws complicated. They are literally there preventing tax education from being put into civics classes in high school. I think they should be there, but we have these forces trying to get them not to be. And why would they do that? Well, if you're confused about your taxes, if taxes were easy for you to do like they are in Spain, you wouldn't need to rely on H&R Block. You wouldn't need to go get QuickBooks software from Intuit, right? So it's really important, what they want is for you to feel confused, for you to feel like you need to pay for help. And so I think that's really fucked up, but I'm just telling you that it is true. That actually happens in our country. And so the fact that you have no tax education and that you feel confused by it, it's not you. It's not you. So if you've been feeling like guilt or shame about that, I'm just here to release you. You don't have to feel shame about it. It's actually pretty normal. A little aside here, I usually give talks where I teach about taxes to large groups of people. Usually these are creative groups of people, designers, actors, artists. But I got hired recently to give a talk to a group of real estate brokers, interestingly, because they're self-employed too, right? So I'm coming into this audience thinking, oh, the questions are going to be completely different from the questions I get from the creative community. I better be prepared for all the real estate rules and all that stuff. So I walk into this room thinking that this would be a much more sort of a group that knew taxes way, way better, because frankly, there's a lot of real estate rules and real estate advantages. I walked in, it was no different. It was no different from just being in front of a group of fine artists. It just proved to me this fact. There is no tax education in this country. Even people you think should know about their taxes don't know about their taxes. If you don't deliberately go out to study your taxes or study tax, you don't know. So it's not you. Okay. Number 5, I think one of the reasons that self-employed people get stuck is that what you actually need is a lot simpler than what you might think or be told you need. Okay. So here's what you actually need. 1, you need to set up bookkeeping so that you pay your taxes quarterly, right? When you're self-employed, you have to pay quarterly taxes and you have to know what your profit is so you can make a calculation to pay your quarterly tax. You need that. You need to know your profit. One, so you can calculate that quarterly tax, but also to make business decisions, right? To see, am I making money from this? Is this worth it? Do I need to raise my prices? Do I need to lower my expenses? What do I do? It's a tool for decision making when you know your profit. Just the baseline information of like, is what I'm doing sustainable? And number three, you need to track every expense so that you save on taxes. Okay. That's why you need bookkeeping when you are a small business or self-employed person. That is the point of bookkeeping for you. Okay. Now, a lot of us get all tripped up and confused because accounting is very robust, very powerful, and bookkeeping, double entry bookkeeping in software can get very complex. It's cool because it's powerful enough to track all kinds of things. But the fact is, there are regulations around how bookkeeping and accounting must be done when you are a very large corporation, especially if you are a publicly traded corporation like Coca-Cola, like Caterpillar, a company like that that's traded on stock indexes. You aren't that. Your needs are completely different. You are not regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commissions the way Coca-Cola is. You do not have to comply with GAAP accounting rules to the level and degree that a company like that does. So a lot of the stuff that feels necessary or that you might be told is necessary, just from reading random online articles about bookkeeping or accounting, they're just not necessary for you. And all they're doing is adding confusion. Your stuff is so much simpler. It doesn't need to be that hard. Okay. Number 6, what's wrong with most small businesses' bookkeeping setups? A couple of things. I just did last week's episode all about this. And so I'm just going to do a quick review here. But if you want to go a little deeper on why the bookkeeping setups are kind of all wrong, I think, for self-employed people, go listen to last week's episode. Okay. But here's the summary. What's wrong with the bookkeeping setups that are out there and that you've probably been looking at? One, they don't track to taxes. So taxes and bookkeeping are slightly different. What goes in your bookkeeping is not exactly the same thing as what goes on your tax return. They're very related, but there are a couple key areas where they're different. A lot of people who do bookkeeping don't know tax law. And so you may get an awesome bookkeeping setup and it still won't cover this stuff because that person doesn't know tax, right? So tracking to your taxes more precisely saves you a ton of work, since for you, the point of your bookkeeping is primarily around saving tax deductions and paying quarterly taxes. It's pretty closely related to tax needs, why you need your bookkeeping, okay? Number 2, it's not tailored, right? A lot of us use the default categories in our bookkeeping software or some random categories given to us by a bookkeeper. And those categories don't make sense for your business. You might not realize that you can tailor your bookkeeping categories more specifically to what you need, to language that you understand and to needs that you have specifically in your business, as opposed to using the category depletion, which might be a default category in QuickBooks. And depletion is only relevant if you're a coal miner or doing in the forestry business, right? Depletion has nothing to do with you. Whoever you are listening to this, depletion should not be a category on your books, unless there's people out there listening who have oil wells and coal mines. So tailored categories, that's really important. Number 3, the bookkeeping that a lot of us use does not track the mixed use stuff. So there's a lot of things in your life that will go on your tax return that actually don't get recorded in your bookkeeping. That category of things are the things that are mixed use, things that are primarily a personal expense. And so it shouldn't be in your bookkeeping, but some portion of that personal expense does get used for business. And you are allowed under tax law to use that business portion on your taxes. So I do in my bookkeeping setup in the system that I have developed and have as part of my money bootcamp program, I have tabs on the spreadsheet that track these mixed items, like your home office, like your mileage on your car, like your internet, right? There's a whole bunch of these categories, and you really want a way to be tracking them so that you don't miss those tax deductions because they're not just sitting on your books. 4, the bookkeeping doesn't separate out categories that you're going to need to compare when it comes to tax time. So another thing about having tax knowledge versus just bookkeeping knowledge is that there are some places in your taxes where you get to take the bigger of 2 different methods of calculating the same expense. Okay. And the problem is if you only track it one way in your books, you're going to have to do an entire new calculation for a whole year's worth of numbers in order to know which one is bigger, which one gets you a better deduction. So what I've done in my bookkeeping setup, my simple bookkeeping spreadsheet system that I offer within Money Bootcamp, is I have separated out key categories where you get an option of doing it this way or that way so that you're tracking that all year long. And you can just at a glance, just see which one is bigger, which one is my better deduction. That is really important. And lastly, the bookkeeping is just too complicated, right? A lot of us don't need software at all. A spreadsheet is adequate. For most artists, you can just use a spreadsheet. You don't need software. If you're a larger small business, maybe making more than $100,000 in profit, yeah, at a certain point, you probably do want to get onto software. But even then, you need these tailored categories. You need to know what the personal mixed use stuff is. You still need these things in your bookkeeping. And I teach that in my program, how to apply these principles to your software, right? Even if you don't use my simple spreadsheet system. So you are not trading shares on the stock market. You are not regulated by the Security and Exchange Commission. So you don't need that level of accounting. You don't need all of that stuff. Number 7. Number 7 reason that passionate self-employed people get stuck when it comes to money is that you really do need to put the oxygen mask on yourself first, right? So a lot of us tend to prioritize other people. When we're mission driven, we're outward facing, we're trying to help others. Well, I'm here to say it's really important that you help yourself when it comes to money. That might feel selfish to you. I think that's the reason a lot of us don't do it, but you need fuck you money. You need it. Because if you don't have it, if you don't take care of your own financial safety and security, if you don't have an emergency savings fund, if you don't have money building up in a retirement account, which I prefer to call fuck you money, it causes erosion. And I mean erosion here in this sense. You get tired. You don't have the ability to rest. You start feeling resentful of clients who don't pay you enough, which is ultimately your responsibility to charge more or step out of the work if it's truly not serving you and meeting your needs, right? So you get tired, you get resentful, you lose your energy for the work, and eventually you lose sight of your mission, right? When you don't put that money oxygen mask on yourself, it actually makes you lose sight of the mission. It lessens the impact. It erodes the impact of your work. And so ultimately, the reason you're not doing it now is because you're so focused on your mission. I'm saying that putting that financial security oxygen mask on you, it actually helps your mission. It actually keeps you in the ability to be rested, recharged, to stay passionate and happy and not feel resentful towards the people you're serving. And it actually furthers your mission. Okay, number 8. There is a 3-part system that you need to grow fuck you money. All right. And I like to use an example of a person who's got a nice, healthy time horizon. This is only possible when you start in your 20s or 30s. And not all of us are doing that. And that's okay. The thing is, even though 20 years ago was the best time to get started, the second best time is now. And it's your only option. So now is the time to start, whoever you are. But if you have, a 40-year time horizon, then you can grow, just for an example, $1.8 million with just $17 a day. And so just so that you understand that doesn't mean you actually save out of your income $1.8 million. When you use this 3-part system, you're only actually putting away a little over $200,000 over the course of your entire lifetime. I understand that seems like a big chunk of money, but it breaks to $17 a day, and it's $200,000 plus becomes 1.8 million inside this system. Okay, so what is the system? It's a 3-part system that I call the power triangle. So part 1, and again, I've made a whole episode about the power triangle. I will link to that in the show notes. But here's what the power triangle is that you need to grow fuck you money. Number 1, you need to find the lazy money. So this is about not hustling for more. I'm not saying go out and you have to increase your income. That doesn't hurt. I mean, go for it if you can. But I'm not saying you need to hustle for more. Finding your lazy money means taking the money that you already have, putting the spotlight on all the areas that your money is, and finding the money that is there, but that isn't working hard, and taking it and making it work hard. Number 2, using accounts that save you on taxes, which means that they accelerate the growth of that money. That's really important. There's actually all kinds of available tax advantaged accounts that are available to you, right? They're available to low income, moderate income, middle income people, as well as the wealthy. Even though you might think of those things as only for the wealthy, it's the wealthy who are using them consistently and all the time, because the wealthy have accountants who are insisting upon it. You need the information to know how to use them, but they're accessible. They're just as accessible to you. In fact, there's even some tax credits for low-income people who use them. You just have to know they're there, right? And this all comes back to that fact that there's no tax education in this country. If somebody's not teaching you this, you have no inherent way to know. So it's something it's just a skill. It's just a thing you have to learn is out there and learn how to use it. Once you know, and you can use it. So these accounts are set up by the US government to give you major, major tax savings when they use them. And the reason is that the government is actually incentivizing you to save money in certain areas of your life. These include your retirement, that's the big one, your healthcare, and your education, as well as your children's education. Okay, those are the big 3. Okay, and then number 3, part 3 of the power triangle is investing. You do actually have to learn some basic investment in order to grow your money, right? In order to grow fuck you money. So to turn that $200,000 of lifetime savings into $2 million of retirement money. Okay. Now it's possible. That is a very realistic scenario. And in this class I'm going to talk about in a minute, I actually show you the math and I show you the graph of what happens and why that happens. But investing is a key component. Now, investing can feel really intimidated if you never got any financial information, if you never got a financial education. But I'm here to say that the basic principles of investing never change. They are not trendy. They account for both downturns and upturns, right? Recessions are already included in a good investment strategy, as well as boom times. So there's no changing strategy depending on the market. In fact, you shouldn't. You should not change strategy. You should have a strategy that accounts for highs and lows already. Okay. So basic investing is boring. It's not trendy. It doesn't change. Once you learn it, you don't have to do more, right? I am not talking about picking stocks. No. In fact, do not do that. Please do not. I'm just talking about a very simple, basic diversification. This is the kind, when you're this age, you should have this and this. And as you age, you should have this and this, and your mix should change from here to here. It's pretty much that simple. Number 9, it is possible for you to have, even on a low or modest income, a glorious stash of fuck you money. And I say this with experience. Remember, I do people's taxes. I see people's incomes. I have seen the incomes of thousands and thousands of people. And I have gotten to see that there are people with incredibly high salaries who live hand to mouth. They live paycheck to paycheck. They have terrible habits. And they don't think they need to do anything about it because their income is so high. Well, guess what? I've also seen these people get laid off and then be in serious trouble. So don't assume that your rich friends, rich neighbors, people you see on TV, don't assume that they are necessarily better off They probably have fancier shoes, but whatever. It doesn't mean they're actually in better financial health. Okay. The other thing I have seen because of doing people's taxes is that you really can build generational wealth. You can build enough money to have a nice, comfortable retirement with a low to moderate income. And here's what it takes. You do not need to sacrifice your values. You do not need to triple your income, but you do need to be smart. That is a requirement. You basically need to have these 3 skills that I just spoke to you about. That is called the power triangle. You need to have those skills. You need to spend less money than you earn. That, I know that in a way feels shocking, but it's also so obviously true. But really the key is gaining the skills, knowing those 3 parts of the power triangle and establishing a habit. Okay. That's really as simple as that. Making it a habit, making it kind of your religion to always find your hidden money every year, put it in those advantaged accounts every year, and to make sure that that money is invested according to your basic investment plan. Not that hard, right? It's just a little skill set that you need to learn. I'm almost done. I have number 10 is my very last of 10 points of why it is hard, why creative people and mission-driven people like us get stuck when it comes to money. Number 10, the last one, you need a safe space. This one is really important. And I think a lot of programs and a lot of accountants absolutely miss this. The fact is, so many of us, all of us, I think, have shame when it comes to money. A lot of us think it's us. A lot of us have historic trauma around money. We get really triggered when it comes to money. And so if you step into a room where you already feel a cultural divide with the accountant or financial manager that you're talking to, it can be so easy to just shut down. In fact, in that setting, if you're not feeling seen and valued for doing the work that you do in the world, which is really easy to happen when there's such a sort of misunderstanding about why you do what you do when it doesn't seem to be for money. I've seen people shut down in that situation. I myself have shut down. I have had that experience when I was just out of art school and I went to my dad's accountant for the first time. I felt shamed for not knowing business terminology, for not knowing all the rules about IRAs. And I was like, isn't that why I'm in this office? Aren't you supposed to teach me? But I was too embarrassed to admit that I didn't know when this guy was being so judgy about the fact that I didn't. So I have come to learn how critical it is to feel seen for the work that you do, to feel seen in the world, to feel seen for knowing that this stuff is difficult. It's difficult to get to the point where you're ready to work on it, and it needs to feel safe. The only way to get to a place where you can get your questions answered, where you can even identify what your questions are, right, is you need to feel safe. So to me, that is, in a way, I'm calling it point number 10. It's really point number 1. I think that's the starting point. So if you relate to this that I've talked about today, if getting your money organized, if the idea of retirement has felt confusing, alienating, or stressful to you, I'm here to say that it doesn't need to. I hope I just clarified why what's out there for you, the options that are out there for bookkeeping, for tax information, tax preparation, why it has historically been such a bad fit for small businesses that are creative and have a vision. My goal today in this episode was to give you clarity, and I hope I've done that. So here's the surprise. This episode, these 10 points, I have basically just given you an outline of my program. I've just given you an outline of the content inside my program, Money Bootcamp. I built the program based on what I see that is wrong with the way that the financial and tax world treats creative and mission-driven people. And I developed a program to fix it, to teach you in that safe space the basic information you need to know in order to grow fuck you money, in order to set up your bookkeeping and get organized for taxes so they stay simple and don't derail you. So if this episode made you realize that understanding your taxes, getting organized, and even building a pile of fuck you money is in reach, if you're feeling ready to end the stress and self-doubt and set up a simple system so this stops occupying so much mental space and worrying your brain, and so that you can get back to work on that amazing work that you do, here's the next step. I made a free class that you can watch, which is about the framework, the exact framework I use inside Money Bootcamp. I talk about 4 mistakes that all creative self-employed people make with their money. And you will learn the framework I use, the exact steps, what they are, and you'll get all the information that you need to decide if Money Bootcamp is a fit for you or not. Maybe it's not. But if it is a fit for you, kind of what it costs, what you get, what it takes. And you can click the link when you're watching this class. It's pre-recorded. When you're watching this class, there's a link available as you're watching, and you can click it at any time to join Money Bootcamp. And you get instant access, and there's a bonus one-on-one call with me that you get by clicking it. And in that one-on-one consult, we can go over your first and most immediate tax concerns, and we can get you on the fastest path to getting set up right so that you get the most out of the program and that you get some immediate specific questions about your taxes and your money answered by me right away. So to do that, you're going to register for the class at go.sunlighttax.com/register. So the way to join the program, to learn about it, even just to learn some really valuable information, including more about that power triangle and that growth curve of how $200,000 becomes $17 a day becomes almost $2 million, and about some stuff about your taxes that you need to know. In that class, you're going to register at go.sunlighttax.com/register. And I hope that gives you a path to understanding why this stuff has felt so hard, why it doesn't need to feel so hard, and how you can fix it. And I'm here for you. All right. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. Don't forget to sign up for that class, go.sunlighttax.com/register, and send me a DM if you have any questions for me. I'd love to answer. All right. See you later. Bye. Thank you for listening. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review. It really helps, and share it with a friend. I'm so grateful. This podcast is for education and entertainment only. Nothing in this episode should be taken as individual tax or financial advice. You can find all the tools, books, and links we reference at sunlighttax.com/podcast.